Yes, yes, yes. Welcome, family, to Crypto and Assets on this amazing Saturday. Appreciate everybody hopping on. Put a 10 in the chat if you guys can see me and hear me. Just want to make sure the technicals are working okay. And we're live on YouTube. So super excited to be back on, myself and Gil. So you got the duo back this week, which I'm really excited about. And we're going to go ahead and get this call started. We're going to start off as we normally do. Appreciate everybody hopping on. Put a 10 in the chat if you guys. And we're going to start off as we normally do with the fundamentals, going over what's happened in the past 1 to 2 weeks with the news, right? And so, my segment of the call is dealing more with the news and the fundamentals and the things that affect, you can say, the macroeconomy. And then Gil dives into more of the technicals and the ins and outs in terms of trades that you might be looking for or investment opportunities, price levels, and things of that nature. And really, my part, it's important to understand that if you're somebody who is a crypto skeptic or you're not too sure on the credibility of crypto, whether that's Bitcoin or the alt projects, hopefully by the end of the next 20 minutes, you have some more clarity on like, okay, this is why people are so crypto crazy. This is why people are investing in it. This is why institutions have money in it. This is why the wealthy are allocating funds into crypto accounts and not just into stocks. I want you to have that belief and understanding by the end of my segment. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to dive into what's been going on in the crypto space in the past 1 to 2 weeks. So let me just get this up. Amazing, brilliant. So we have a couple of key points here. The first thing is the US Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act. Now, this is really, really important. You guys know that we spoke about strategic reserves before and what they are. And all it is that different states within America have a strategic reserve, and that's for Bitcoin. That means that different states are holding Bitcoin in times of a crisis or in times of unexpected scenarios where they can go into that pot of money, that pool of funds, and use it for whatever purposes that it is. That's really the main gist of what a strategic reserve is. I mean, think about it as like your savings account or your second savings account that's held in another country, for example, right? Like you keep that almost as your emergency fund. And if I just search up strategic reserve purpose, you guys are going to get a understanding of what I'm speaking about. A stockpile of essential goods or resources set aside by governments and organizations in times of unexpected events. That's exactly what it is. And so we may have that for gold, right? And that's important because gold has been one of the longest standing inflation combative investments that somebody can have. It's proven that over the past 10, 20, 30 years, that's one form of a reserve. But then we also have crypto. And the more diversification you can have for this, the better. And so what this US Bitcoin Strategic Reserve Act is all about is actually something within it, which I want to speak about. And it's new. It's been called the American Reserve Modernization Act. Now, this is really, really interesting. And the reason why is because this act is actually proposing for the Treasury to acquire and hold Bitcoin, 200,000 Bitcoin annually, in fact, for the next 5 years. And it's proposing that they hold these Bitcoins for the next 20 years minimum. So just think about this act where the Federal Reserves themselves have to acquire that amount of Bitcoin every year for the next 5 years, which equals 1 million Bitcoin, and they have to hold it for a minimum of 20 years. Well, what that means is that means a massive influx of institutional money. 200,000 Bitcoins every year for 5 years, guys, that's a lot. And as Bitcoin's price rises over the next 5 years, that's only going to increase. And if we did some maths here, because I want to show you guys the impact of something like this act being passed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put up here, and this is giving you an understanding as to, well, why should I invest in crypto and Bitcoin? Well, this is going to be one of the answers. If we do 200,000 and we do that times 5, because 5 years, 200,000 Bitcoins every year is 1 million Bitcoin. And if we go to the price of Bitcoin here, it's 75,000. So what I'm going to do, this is CoinGecko, and you guys can see the different tokenomics of different projects. And if I go to the Bitcoin converter here, my laptop is lagging slightly, but I want to show you guys something. So if I go to the Bitcoin converter and I put 1 million Bitcoins, wow, this gives you a USD value, guys, of, let me see, I'm going to search out. I'm going to use a converter for this because I want to do the maths. Let's have a look. Or maybe I can just manually do it. This gives you a value. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, that's in the billions. I don't even want to do the maths, guys, for you because it might take some time, but that is 75 billion. Yeah, I think that's 75 billion. That's just incredible. Yeah, 75 billion. Wow. So that means that the government, the Federal Reserve, would have $75 billion worth of Bitcoin, guys, at the current Bitcoin prices. That's just a wild, wild number. And if we look at the market cap of the crypto market, it's 2.6 trillion, 75 billion. So that would be around about, yeah, that would be around about 5% of the market cap directly from the Federal Reserve. 5% of the market cap. And as Bitcoin grows over the next 5 years, which it will, it's probably going to be more than 5%. You're probably looking at closer to 10%, which is wild. So, and already we have states invested into crypto. So you just add another 10% to that. It's an absolutely astronomical number. So, you know, this gives you an idea as to like who's investing in Bitcoin and why. And like, we should follow the money. So that's a really important act that's being passed in government right now. I think it's going to get passed. It could not, but I think the probability is that it will. Now, the next bit of news here is Kevin Walsh is the new Fed chair. We know that Jerome Powell was the previous Fed chair. And Jerome Powell is still on the board of governors, by the way. He hasn't completely left. He's just not the chair of the Fed. And so it's important to understand that when the Fed chair changes, and this basically means the person who has the final announcement and say when it comes to interest rates in the US, and interest rates are really important because if interest rates increase, more people save money, more businesses decide to save instead of spend. If interest rates decrease, people are incentivized to spend because they would get less yield on their money if they kept it in the bank, right? Like if interest rates are high, let's say 5%, then you're going to be like, hey, do I spend this $100,000 or do I save it and get 5%? Well, at that point, you might save and get 5%. It's a very high IR. But if interest rates are 1%, you might say, oh, there's almost no point in keeping this money in the bank. I'm going to spend it. So whenever interest rates are higher, guys, you always see slower growth in the economy. You see less economic growth. Whenever interest rates are lower, what you see is that it's cheaper to borrow. So people now want to spend money. They want to borrow money. They want to invest money. They want to buy property and things of that nature. So The reason why I'm stating that is so you understand really what the Fed chair does and its main purpose. It's to do with monetary policy, and it's also to do with fiscal policy. So it's government policy and it's finances and interest rates. And so Kevin Walsh, the difference is between him and Jerome Powell is that Kevin Walsh is a little bit more tougher on inflation policy. So he's a little bit stricter. Also, he prefers to conduct something called QE, which is quantitative easing. So Jerome Powell was very willing to do QE. QE is when they pump money. I say they, like the Federal Reserve, inject money into the economy. This is the printing of funds. So you guys may remember 2020, 2021, what happened a lot, there were stimulus checks. Those stimulus checks was literally free money given out to US citizens and residents. And you got like a 1,500 stimmy check, you got a 1,200 stimmy check. I was in college and, I remember looking for spring break plans and my friend said he hasn't got any money to go, but he said, hey, I'm getting 1,500 from the government in a few weeks. As soon as I get that 1,500 from the government, which is a stimulus check, which Joe Biden gave out because of, COVID and unemployment, he said, hey, I'm going to use that money and I'm going to go to spring break. I'm going to get lit. So it's kind of funny, the things that people spend money on, especially in college. But the point is that Kevin Walsh is less willing to do quantitative easing. And that's that's printing and funding money into the economy. That can be a very good thing long term, by the way, because that then it doesn't decrease supply of cash, but it basically stabilizes supply of cash. And as we know, anything with unlimited supply, demand's going to decrease, the value of it will decrease. That's what happens with stimulus checks and quantitative easing. He's less willing to do that because he understands the long-term ramifications of that. So I think that's a very good thing. And the third thing that he's a little bit different than Jerome Powell on is he typically has tighter financial conditions. So he's a little bit more conservative in that sense. So these are the three main differences between Jerome Powell and Kevin Walsh. If you're a trader, a leverage trader, whether it's futures, whether it's CFDs, whether it's options trading, binary trading, these are good things for you to be aware of from a macroeconomic standpoint. Macroeconomic is like the global, the bigger picture. Microeconomic is the small picture. The third piece of news here is something which I've spoke about a lot, guys, which is IPOs for 2026 and 2027. IPOs is an initial public offering. It's when a company goes from private to public. And sometimes you can invest in a company privately, but it can be difficult. You need to be an accredited investor or, show proof of income or have enough funds of that, say. But when it's public and you go on Yahoo Finance, you can see the publicly traded companies. You guys can invest in that. You can go to eToro, you can go to Fidelity, you can go to Charles Schwab, you can go to any of these brokers, guys, and you have the opportunity to have shares in these companies, right? Like shares in companies is the same as tokens in crypto. It's the exact same concept. And so if you have a crypto portfolio, which many of us may have on a call, we should definitely have a stock portfolio as well. Now, these IPOs for the next year or so, guys, I've spoke about SpaceX, you got Discord, you even got Canva, which this presentation was literally made on Canva, what you're looking at right now. And then you've got things such as Ripple. There's a bunch of IPOs. You've got Anthropic. So I want you to be aware of those. And SpaceX is something which is happening. Literally spoke about this, in the past few months. It's happening in June. It's literally happening next month. I think it's the 26th of June. Massive, massive, massive investment opportunity. This is something that you want to put aside capital for and consider investing in. Now, let me pull up an article about the SpaceX IPO because it's massive. I believe it's a $1.25 trillion valuation, which is huge. And it's likely to be, as it states here, a record IPO. And yeah, it's going to put it's going to put Elon Musk in the bracket of having two separate $1 trillion publicly traded companies, which is huge. Probably going to be at that point officially the world's richest, wealthiest individual. That's what I think is going to make him. And so I wanted to raise a couple of points here. If you guys want to dive into research, the Motley Fool is not a bad place to look at research in the traditional world. And I wanted to point something out here actually to you guys. Let's have a look down here. Let's scroll down. Let's scroll down. Let's scroll down. This is key. So read this sentence, guys. $1 trillion valuation would mean SpaceX stock is trading roughly 125 times 2025 revenue. The reason why I state that is because when it comes, and this is important key for the tech industry and fast growing industries, but specifically tech, in the tech space, guys, whenever there's a company that's growing, a newer company or even an older company, you can times its valuation by times 10. You have the ability to do so, and that's normally standardized. And the reason why is because in the tech space, because it's such a fast growing, innovative industry, whenever a company is looking to sell or whenever a company is looking to raise funds, the standardization is timesing its valuation by 10 because it factors in the potential of where the company is going to be 3, 5, 10 years from now. And so when I look at this, and this isn't to do with valuation, a slightly different metric, but it's $2 trillion valuation, 125 times 2025 revenue. This is what you call over optimistic, right? Like there is an element of hype involved in here. Yes, SpaceX is ran by Elon Musk and the technology is something we haven't seen before, 100%. But I've spoke to you guys about Tesla and my experience in the past, and I've also spoke to you guys about Palantir, which is something I invested in and sold back in like 2020, 2021. And so I want you guys to know that just because it's got Elon behind it, just because it's got the technology, just because it's, interplanetary mixed with technology, do not think that something can be overvalued because it 100% can. And when these IPOs come out, when this comes out in June 26, I believe, and you can invest in it in these brokerage firms, consider the two things I mentioned on the last call. There's two options. It's either, number one, it's a long-term investment regardless, but it's either invest early, like immediately, or wait for the news to come out, wait for the hype to come out, and wait for that retracement. Because that retracement might be at the IPO price or below. And we've seen it with Circle, guys, with the company behind USDC. We saw how it IPO'd and the value basically tripled or quadrupled. And then guess what? A few weeks later, it came back down to near the IPO price. So that's something I want you guys to keep in mind. And obviously, as you guys know, just because the Motley Fool, this finance like media company, just because they have these bull, base, and bear case scenarios, right? Of like, okay, like your $5,000 in 5 years could be 12,000. Like, don't just believe in that. Stick to the facts. Stick to the objective thinking, which is the 5 questions we ask ourselves whenever we're analyzing a stock. Now, we don't have that time. I'm not going to ask you guys what it is, but you guys know what the 5 questions are when you go to Yahoo Finance. Number 1 is cash flow positive. Number 2, cash flow growing. Number 3, revenue growing. Number 3 is revenue growing recently. And then number 4 is cash flow growing recently. Is cash flow growing overall? Like, these are the 5 questions that you go to the income statement on Yahoo Finance for any company and you rate the company out of those 5. Like, if it ticks 4 out of 5 of those boxes, boom, 80% confirmation ratio, that's a damn good investment. If it ticks 3 out of the 5, maybe not. That's a 60% confirmation checklist for your investment. So make sure you do that when it comes to companies like SpaceX and everything else. Don't just get caught up in the hype that people are talking about with getting involved and trying to get rich quick. This is stock, so it's a different method than dealing with, let's say, degen crypto coins or mid to low cap crypto coins, right? It's a different cycle that you're looking to hold these investments. So I wanted to touch on that. That's really important. And then the last thing is SEC's innovation exemption tokenized stock. So basically the SEC, which is the Security Exchange Commission, as we know, they've been looking to tokenize stocks. That means have Tesla shares. That means have Apple. That means have Amazon within the blockchain, and you can actually own a few tokens, which is owning shares of that company, which is an interesting concept. And the main thing is that they want to bring the stock market to make it a 24/7 accessible market. Right now, crypto is 24/7. I can trade it on a Sunday morning, but stocks you cannot. You cannot trade on a Sunday morning. And so, as soon as stocks goes to a 24/7 market, which is what's proposed, it's in my opinion inevitable. What's going to happen, guys? Well, I personally think that you're going to see a lot more institutional money in stocks and choosing stocks, some of that over crypto, some of that as well as crypto. But also this tokenization of stocks, it brings a form of competition. It does bring a form of competition. And there's a couple of things I wanted to mention with this as I pull up my notes over here. Give me one moment, guys. Okay, amazing. Yeah, a couple of things I want to mention with this SEC and announcement, guys. So there's some pros and there's some cons here with tokenized stocks. Now, the first pro is 24/7 trading, which is what I mentioned. The second pro is faster settlement. So stock trades, they can take up to 1 business day, but that's not going to happen if they're tokenized within the blockchain, because they're going to be literally within minutes or seconds, as we know how payments and transactions work. And then thirdly, you have the fractional ownership, right, which is owning a piece of those shares effectively, but through the blockchain, which allows you to do so. But there's some cons here as well. One of the cons is regulation uncertainty. That's gonna take some time to get some regulation with that. But number two is also what we call custody or counterparty risk. Now, this is basically where a third party, meaning like not the company itself, and not the government, but a third party, they're going to have custodial of the real shares. So what happens is you're going to have ownership of tokens, but those tokens are connected to stocks and somebody owns those shares. So it's not like direct ownership in a sense, right? Because there's a third party who's holding those tokens for you, which is then connected to the shares. And the more people that have some form of ownership in that line of investment, guys, the riskier it becomes. The other question I have with this, and this is a genuine question I just want you to think about, and in terms of how I analyze different investments and things, guys, is what happens to the rights? Because in crypto, we know that there's projects where you can actually have a say, you can actually vote on certain changes within the project because you have tokens, you have ownership in that project. And for example, like gaming cryptos, right? Like if you have gaming tokens, you can vote on changes in the game. But what happens when those stocks are tokenized? Who has the voting rights? Who has the ownership rights? Like who has the dividends rights? How does dividends work in stocks, but then with tokenization involved? These are questions that we don't know yet, but I want you guys to keep an eye out because this is something that's definitely going to be in play, in my opinion, in the next probably couple of years. So those are the points that I wanted to mention to you guys. And I think it's important to know this, even though it can seem intermediate or advanced. When these announcements start coming out and these terminologies get spewed out in the media, hopefully you have some more knowledge on, oh, I know what that means. Oh, ownership. Okay, yeah, I need to consider that. Or, oh, IPO, initial public offering. This is what this does. This is where I can buy it. And just keep an eye out as well for SpaceX, because certain brokers, guys, are going to have certain minimums, right? Like eToro might have a minimum of $5,000 investment. Another brokerage might have a minimum of $50. Like it's going to vary. So keep that in mind. And yeah, you might see in the news about strategic reserve and you're like, oh, I know what that is. Like strategic reserve is X and it's important because of Y. Like these are good things to know. So appreciate you guys plugging into the fundamental side. Now I'm going to pass it over to my brother, Gil. I know he's going to give out some plays in the market, whether it's stocks, whether it's crypto. So Gil, I'm going to pass it over to you, brother.
Of course. Appreciate you, bro, for always coming here, giving a lot of game, giving a lot of great perspective, and really, like I always say, information that people aren't paying attention to, and that's really what you want to pay attention to, and what we want to pay attention to, is what's really going on not just in the front end, but also the back end. So I hope you guys took some game, took some notes. Again, all this information is for you to be more aware of the markets, but also it's more like a case, right? It's kind of like you look at the different pieces, and these are the things that make you to make the decision to either be invest in that market or not invest in a market, or invest in a project and not invest in a project, right? Or a company, same thing. These are very important things to look at because it gives you an advantage really in the market that a lot of people don't have. So with saying that, like John Luke said, I'm going to be a little bit more technical. There's a couple things I want to bring up just because exciting things are coming this summer. So I'm going to bring up some things and kind of how connect them in the markets and how they're actually connected in a way in the markets as well. But first things first I want to go through is this is a website that I like to look at mostly on these sessions, and it's the Fear and Greed Index. If you've never looked at this, I highly recommend to look at this. This is something that I look at, when I'm just looking at the sentiment in the market. This gives me a really good idea of where the market is, right? This gives me an idea of what is the emotions right now. As you can see here within stock market, for example, right? Stock market, we got into a very greedy area, right? In April, May, and throughout this month. But we can see that, like everything, right? If you look at this, like the charts, literally in March of 2026, we were going down, creating lower lows and lower highs for the traders out there. Then we hit a bottom, we hit a spring, and literally we started to create higher highs and higher lows. This sentiment gives you a really good idea of kind of where the market is because remember, people have emotions and people move the markets. So that's something that you really want to look at. Now for crypto, we can see that we're still technically in a fear area. Like it's crazy to see that the stock market is hit greed levels, going into April, right? April, and we've been hitting all-time highs, literally in all of May, basically. And understanding that now crypto is not, right? So, like I've been saying, it's a lag. It has its own marketplace, and that's why I'm very out of it now. I'm very like vocal about having a stock portfolio and having a crypto portfolio. That's why this is crypto and assets. We talk about crypto, but we also talk about stocks because it gives you an edge in the market when you participate on both sides, mostly where everything is going in the economy, right? It's going from traditional back to crypto, right? So really, at the end of the day, both markets are going to be here long term because stock market is just going to be tokenized. It's just going to be more digitally. That's it. And in crypto, it's just going to create another avenue that's going to partner with the stock market. So there's a lot of things there that, like I said, but having both markets really gives you an edge, what most people don't have, in my opinion. I believe that they're going to also have different marketplaces, meaning different, upsides. Right now, you see the stock market going up, but not crypto. So what if we see crypto start going bullish, and then the stock market starting to retrace, right? Can you capitalize on both sides and give you that edge, right? So this is one of the first things I wanted to show just to kind of see where we're at. So as you can see, stock market is a little bit more greedy. It's not overly greedy, but it definitely is in the more greedy side. And in crypto, is still a little bit more in the fear side as well. We saw some neutral times when BTC hit 80K, and then we kind of retraced, and now we're down here, which I actually think it's a good thing. I'm going to give you my perspective about that, but I think this is a good thing. Now, there's a couple things I want to bring up. I actually want to bring back up a conversation that John Luke had with everybody here in crypto and assets a couple weeks ago. And when he talked about this, I don't know if you guys remember, but there's a couple things I'm going to bring up about the World Cup, by the way, just because I think it's going to be a catalyst in the markets. Like, I kind of see it being both sides. I see it either being a massive bullishness during it because of people not paying attention and things happening, or I can see it being a crash for some reason, right? Like literally, those are the two things I see. Like I would be very surprised if the market does nothing during it, honestly, because during big events, there actually is a lot of movement in markets because people aren't paying attention to certain things or things are happening, stuff like that. But to bring this back up, this is a project that actually John Luke bring to us and even to me when I was on here. ADI, right? They partnered. They're a predictions market platform that partnered with FIFA. And I've been looking at this token and I've been waiting for it. And I've just been looking at it because it's interesting to me, which is not interesting because I already know how it works. When this came out April 3rd, this was actually the top of the market, literally the top. right? That's what they always say. Buy the rumor, sell the news. But now going into the World Cup, I'm interested because remember, everything is marketing, everything is ads. Like nobody's talking about this. I haven't heard many people talk about this. So maybe a couple people heard about this, but not too much. So what happens if this starts to get marketing during the World Cup? Right? What happens if this gives an opportunity for a potential thing? Now, this is something that I wouldn't consider a long-term hold at all. Like this would be kind of like I would be treating this more like a meme coin if I was to treat it like anything, really. So it's important to understand that, but these are kind of opportunities that, are only here for a period of time. Like I don't see this product doing much after. But could it see a potential push up? I mean, this already came in the 50% zone on the fib, right? Could it go lower? It could. That's kind of what I'm looking at. But really, this might not be a bad, like see what can happen. See what can happen. We'll talk about it with when we go into the tokenomics, which I'm gonna talk about some tokenomics today as well with y'all. With everything, I'm actually gonna move my screen over here. But I did want to talk about that. So on top of that, I do want to talk about as well a couple other things kind of relate to the World Cup, but also when it comes to just crypto as a whole. Because I don't know if you guys have heard, but if you guys haven't heard of Polymarket, it's something that is about to actually IPO, so it's going to be a publicly listed company. And it's crazy because the guy who created this actually didn't see it being a profit thing because he doesn't actually, from what I heard, don't mistake me, I'm not a professional of Polymarket. I just know a couple things from shout out to the boy Tony here in Powerhouse. But what I know is that they're actually not taking like they were not taking even like fees, like literally, like they were just literally having an open market of people betting, like literally, right? People betting, the game tonight, right? Like we've seen this. Now it's called predictions market. Even though it's sports betting, or the thing is, the difference is too is not just sports, it's anything, right? Like you can literally bet whatever, will Bitcoin hit 150K, by December? Yes and no. Or yes, December 31st, or by June. Yeah, definitely not June. December 31st, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Or you can bet against it, right? So this is something that's interesting. I think that this is where the world is going into. I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of the movies. I don't know. I'm not gonna go to the rabbit hole, but I feel like we're getting to a world where betting on things, on anything happening is a profit. It's a thing. Things like this, I don't know. Just saying. But yeah, things like this are a big deal right now, and it's only getting bigger. So not only do you want to look at this like in the crypto side, and the reason why I even brought this up is because look, like you can even look at things like the FIFA World Cup. And I'm not telling you guys this is an investment. I'm not saying that because it's not an investment. It's literally like predictions market. So you're predicting something. But like every investor, or if you're more of a degen, you might want to take advantage of the opportunity. Because I'm personally am going to be participating in like prediction markets during the World Cup. Because at the end of the day, how I see it is I want to give you guys a realness. Sports is money. Sports is betting, actually. The fact that there is things like this really control the market. I'm not even gonna go into it. The NBA already has so many things on top of that they've gone actually caught for when it comes to betting. So I'm just saying that's where money goes. Like you can't tell me that the World Cup the mission is to bring in revenue. Obviously, things were like the ticket prices right now, which things I was gonna talk about, but maybe not too much. Like things like that really give you an eye-opening moment. Like, damn, like what are these games really for? Now, do I enjoy it? Of course I do, but I also have to be honest and realize really where things are going. So, looking at this, right? Like you can look at, the percentage. Okay, like who could I put my money for? As you can see, it's pretty. There's no like, there's favorites, but even for something like France, like you betting $100 for having France win is a 1 to 5 risk to reward. So I'm not telling you to bet, but start to look at this, and start to look at this more as an investor, but not looking at it as an investment, right? This I feel like any money you put in here is more like play money, right? But at the same time, just letting you know that that's what top people actually do. They do predict certain things and then get on the right side. Obviously, they have access to more information than we do, of course. But yeah, I mean, that's something I really want to share. Now, if you guys want to play, I don't know, people don't believe me, but I have a very strong feeling out of this right here. and also the risk to reward. So if you want to put a good bet on the line, I don't know. I don't think this is a bad bet. I personally don't think so. I'm just saying, even though the team I think is so solid, I'm not saying they're going to win because they have the best team. I think they're going to win because of the fact that the storyline that would actually play out very well. Like I actually hope they have. Here's another one. um, let's see if they have it. I don't know if they will, but like, there's a chance that Portugal can play Argentina in the World Cup, like quarterfinals or something. But I don't know if there's a bet for it yet. I don't think so. But that's something I would definitely bet on because that is gonna happen. Like they're gonna do anything that they can to make that happen. Because you think about the watch of that, like the views of that, right? So, anyways, I want to talk about this because this is solely on crypto. So, literally, how you sign up is you connect your Phantom wallet, you connect your MetaMask wallet, you connect your Coinbase wallet, even your Telegram wallet or Brave wallet, and it's straight through crypto, right? So, just saying, it's straight through crypto. So, like, there's no tracking. There is no literally no you don't have to like send in your ID or anything like that. That probably might change when they go IPO. I don't know. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised. But that's something I really wanted to kind of go through as well. Okay. So, just extra game for you guys to look at. It doesn't have to be sports, but I'm just saying, just, you can look at it, but you don't have to be, just to give you guys a different perspective of the markets. Now, what I want to do real quick is go a little bit of a little sum of where we're at with crypto on the charts now. Looking at BTC, actually, we can start with total market cap first. And also, I want to let y'all know, I'll be done here in 15, but if there's any questions you guys have on any cryptos or stocks, you can send it in the chat box. I'll definitely go over them. I don't mind at all. Even if I don't know about them, I'll go over them as well. So right now with total market cap, like we said last week, we can see that this has pushed up. And we talked about this last week when I was on here, is I wanted to see this push down. It was kind of very a little obvious, so last Saturday was here, right? So I kind of saw this happening. I personally can still see alts maybe going a little bit more here, or this is like all of crypto actually, right? Maybe going a little bit more here. Actually, it's in this zone. It touched the zone, but I want to see it come in here. Right? So which is good. Really, right now, it's good. Like I think the market is moving really good. I like how it's moving. I like the fact that we actually don't have crazy volume. Like we have a good amount, but not like extraordinary yet, which is good. Like one thing I'm learning from Maxotero, like we actually don't want to see a lot of volume while this goes up. We don't. Because if we see more volume and we see more red volume, that means the sellers are winning. So I don't know. That could happen, but that's something I don't want to see. And if it does, it's fine. It gives us more time. But regardless, I really want to see what this is going to do. If this starts to really retrace up and do something like this is really good. What I don't want to see is a quick up and then something like that, obviously, right? So we want to see the market come in here, accumulate, and start to rise up. That's what I don't know. Maybe could we see this during the World Cup? I wouldn't be surprised. And how things are kind of loading, I think alt markets are start to really move even more than something like Bitcoin when the market really starts to move. Because now even looking at Bitcoin, obviously it was the first mover because from the bottom up, it's already had a 37% move, which is honestly pretty good. I wanted to see this area coming here, which I think it could still happen. You know, we can see something like this going up. That's what we want to see. I personally was waiting for this to be taken out, but now if it does get taken out, we're gonna get lower. Like if this gets taken out, we're gonna be in the 50s. All right. That's just my POV. So it's either gonna respect the trend line and come back for it maybe later in the next run or whatever it is, or if it doesn't respect it, we're gonna go lower. So what would I do as an investor? Is I would definitely take advantage of some altcoins. Right now there's some great altcoins opportunities. That we've talked about for a while. Things like Aave. We literally have Ethereum right at 2,000. what looks pretty good. I was actually waiting for this. It actually touched 2007, which is actually really good. So really anything in this box, I really like Ethereum. Again, I think they're just suppressing it. When this starts to go, it's gonna go. Like it would just go. It's not gonna come back for you. And then even the other ones we talked about, right? Chainlink, Solana, Caspa, Ondo. Talk about Ondo real quick before I go into some crypto, and then I'll go a little bit of tokenomics, not too crazy. We were looking for Ondo to give another entry. If you're in our Discord here in Powers University, well, guess what? You took advantage of this. You're back. We back went on the upside. We saw this pump. We looked for a retracement, and then we saw the movement up again. Could it come back? It could because it didn't create a higher high, so it could just range here. But I'm letting y'all know this gave me a really strong conviction for Ondo. Really strong conviction. Like this volume before even anything has moved is really good conviction for me. That means there is people wanting to buy. There is people getting in here, right? So just be aware. Like, yeah, look at that crazy, like huge volume. Yeah, like this can really do something in this next run, in my opinion. So those are a couple things. I know you're saying could it have a run like Zcash? What are you talking about? What crypto? Talking about like Ethereum moving like Zcash? Is that what you're saying? Zcash. I haven't looked at Zcash in a minute. Yeah, you're talking about this move? Yeah, this was crazy. I remember this. I remember this. Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I mean, honestly, when these all start to move, this is what it looks like. Okay. So I'm just saying, I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that with Ondo, like just boom, happening, something like that. We'll see. But yeah, definitely this was a lot of hype, to be honest. But even now, like, I mean, it's still retaining it, which is wild. And the fact that it's still retaining this while the market is down is very interesting. Like it didn't just die. Like it actually stayed above, you know? So that's very interesting to me. Like that is actually I mean, it's a good thing, like even right now, like the thing is it's total supply. So this is a coin gecko where we look at the actual cryptos, right? And we look at their numbers because I like to look at the numbers because men lie, women lie, whatever. A lot of things lie, but numbers don't lie, right? And you can see that their max supply is 21. So that's the most it'll ever be, 21 million tokens. But how much tokens exist right now is 16.6 million. And the market cap is 10 billion, right? So, I mean, this is at the bottom of the market. Like, this is at the bottom. Like, I think, obviously, John Lucas talked about this. It's really the fact of the privacy tokens. I mean, I think that is going to be very crucial in this marketplace. And from what I can see, if I'm not mistaken, they're probably for sure leading the way, right? Yeah, like they're leading the way. Um, you got Zcash and you got Monero. I don't really like Monero. They've done a lot of hacks and a lot of sus stuff, even though they've seen great movements. But I think Monero is more hype because anything that's hasn't lasted. Like anything that hit tops just was like a quick up and down. So I'm not saying I wouldn't invest already in this. This is already, if you're not in it, I'm sorry you missed it. But it's just something to look out for and say, wow, like that's what you want to see. And I don't know. I mean, this is only 10 billion. I mean, if it becomes a 50 billion, for example, which for a privacy coin it could, if it's really the only one that stands. I mean, you're looking at like a $2,500 coin. Like that's kind of crazy, to be honest, right? But yeah, no, there definitely is a lot of hype around it, but you also have to realize that there is use case. There is use case. The reason why it went from what it did, a lot of the war stuff, X, Y, and Z. But at the same time, you got to realize it like this: like privacy coins and crypto are actually a thing. Like it's gonna be needed. The thing is though, is will this be the only one, or will there be other tokens that come in? Because there will be. There's always gonna be competition. you know? So yeah, this is my POV. Would I invest in it? No, I wouldn't. There's other opportunities. You didn't catch it, it is what it is. But that's just a good example of it. So really what I would start looking at is looking at the bigger altcoins right now. Um, things like Aave, things like Chainlink, even Solana. I kind of want to see Solana lower for it to do anything. Something like Ethereum is honestly an advantage. Those are really the first ones I will look at. The only one I will look at that's a little bit lower is Ondo, just because of the volume it's giving. So what's gonna happen if Ethereum starts to actually move, right? Like I personally think this was gonna move just because of the excitement. Well, not really the excitement, because I don't think this is a hype coin at all. Like this is zero hype. Like this is actually not even like on Twitter, on X. This is actually just institutions, real money coming in because of what they do, and it's very boring what they do, which is why there's money coming in as well. So that's a little bit with crypto. Right now it's just being patient. Like I said, these are the moments you want to look at what you're going to accumulate. A lot of people, they also wait for lower prices, and sometimes the lower prices never happen. So you have to be smart with this. Have a budget and make a decision and say, okay, I'm gonna accumulate, but I am gonna keep some cash on the side. That is like the best thing you can do. But if you don't take advantage of it and it just goes, then you're gonna be FOMOing in. So again, my POV. Now, also when it comes to stocks, guys, there's a lot of opportunities here happening when it comes to the stock market as well. Even right now, you have something like Paramount that is starting to kind of show something. I don't know if you guys know, but there's gonna be the UFC fight. If I'm not mistaken, UFC fight at the White House. This is gonna be talked about, but I don't know. I kind of think this might be the top, which is only a couple weeks, so I don't know. But this is going to be on June 14th at the White House. And it's going to be streamed on Paramount. Okay, it will be streamed on Paramount. So, this is what has been talked about a lot. I don't know. I kind of don't, when there's news like that, I mean, could we see a jump going into it and then maybe like that and then continuation? Maybe. So just be aware of that, I think is important. But I like Paramount for what it is, and the risk to reward with it as well. Now, even right now, I actually started to accumulate some hymns. I've talked about this in the last session. This is like a health company. I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of commercials on it, but basically you can get like a lot of prescriptions without having to go to the doctor at all. And think about it, everything electronic. It's kind of like I remember this because, for example, Jordan Morgan called out Carvana, right? So Jordan Morgan and our educator on our platform, he called out Carvana here. He was literally buying Carvana here, right? And saw this move, right? Actually, it was this. It was this. It was in 2020. So he was calling this out for this move, right? So why did that happen? Because buying a car online, right? Like things going online. There's the other one, the dog one. I forgot what it's called. Chewy. He also talked about this. I don't know where it's at now, but he was talking about this like here, actually in 2020. Well, actually, really like here, he saw this jump. But even Chewy, I don't know how it's doing right now. But buying pet food and stuff like that online, right? Things like that. Like really right now, him's having health online that you can just buy it, ship it, don't have to go to a doctor. I think it can be very bullish. I had a pump in 2025, but it really is technically a newer asset that really became known. It came IPO in 2019, so it's been around, which is a good thing. And I don't know. I really like this. I think it's worth it to me to be in the health space, and to be something like subscription based or something like online. I can see some upside on this. So I'm currently in the HIMS right now. I like this as an investment in my stock portfolio, as well. And there's a couple other ones. This one right here is actually called it's more like nuclear power and all that. It's a company that was been talked about from one of our educators as well. I like this right now. This is another like I kind of do this like a long shot play. Like if it happens, it happens. But if it doesn't, it doesn't. Not something I'm putting like my whole marbles on. But really good opportunity right now. Like as a chart work, this looks great. You have high volume. You have engulfing candle, engulfing volume. look, it's perfect setup. You have it come back, literally give you a retracement, and could this take off? Could this take off and give you a 3, 4, 5x of your money? It could. And really, this was its first run. So could it go higher? It definitely could, you know? So something to look at, even though like, their financials not even that good. But it's more like the use case and stuff like that, and just depending on certain things. But that's kind of what I'm looking at. Obviously I'm looking at all of these, but I talk about these pretty often. I did actually start getting into Netflix myself. I talked about this subscription based. I first caught it here, literally right here. I missed it, unfortunately. And then it just took off and then it came back. I personally believe that this will be the bottom because of this reason. The co-founder announced that he's stepping down here, but he's not stepping down until here. I think it's, by the rumors of the news, but also it really happening is going to be the bottom. And then the market start to go bullish with Netflix. Guys, they're an A-rated stock. Their financials are amazing. They're hella profitable, super profitable, and they're only getting more profitable. Okay, their next earnings are actually in July. So I don't know. Could that be the reason why it starts to go even higher? Because what happened is they had amazing earnings. They had one of their best earnings actually. One of their best, one of their best, but it had a bearish news. So I think that was like the handicap, but it's also a reason to move the market. Like anything in life, is to move the market. So that's just my POV on that as well. And then also, if you want to be in a stock that's connected with crypto, Circle. I've been talking about this for a long time. This is USDC owner, right? The one who owns USDC. They're a company that you can actually invest in or participate in. So I would keep your eyes open in this. Like, could this go a little bit lower? It could. If it wants to go here, it can, right? But this is very bullish, and I think this is like a generational run. I'm looking at this for the next 5 years, minimum 5 years. Like this can be a generational run. It came below the IPO. Like this could make something. I think it could come up here. In my opinion, in the next 5 years, I think it can happen. Mostly because USDC stablecoins in general is where the money mainly is going to go to in crypto. Like just letting y'all know that now. Is going to be stablecoins, mostly the Clarity Act, stuff like that. I mean, that's very bullish as well. So, yeah, with saying that, that's kind of what I'm looking at. I would stay very posted with these. Really look at the bigger altcoins. Those are gonna move first, in my opinion. And then you can look at other opportunities. But yeah, other than that, obviously know your risk tolerance. If you're somebody that's less risky, stick with the big ones. Having a 3, 4, 5x is actually amazing. I know people hype up a 10, 20, 30, 40, 50x, but I'm here to tell you that's like hitting the jackpot at the casino. If you want to play that game, go ahead and do that. But that's not the game I play. I've been in this game for 6 years now. I've been in crypto for 5 years. And I realized that wealth isn't created quick. Wealth is created over time, right? So it's about compounding. Can you get more of a for sure, a more 3x for sure, a more even of a 2x for sure for the next 20, 30, 40 years? You're going to be ahead of a lot of people, a lot of people. And that's the game that I'm here to play. And I hope that's the game that you're here to play as well, so that you can be in these markets in a very long time. All right. So, with saying that, I appreciate you guys for being on today's session. Just so y'all know, if you're in Powers University, we have a major announcement on Sunday, a lot of updates in our community. If you're not a part of Powerhouse University, check out the caption once I post this. We'll have those next steps for you. And we're doing some things that no other community is doing, by the way. Like literally, I don't think another community is doing what we're doing. And for the ones that actually, it will be on YouTube actually as well. So if you want to tune in to our Sunday Night Live, it will be on YouTube at 9 p.m. CST. We go live on Sunday Night Live. We go over the charts more trading wise, and we're also going to be announcing something very special for our community here within Powerhouse. So again, we're saying that I appreciate you guys. You guys have a great rest of your day. Have a great evening or afternoon, right? Stay very patient with the markets and stay very aware, because remember, when most people aren't taking advantage of it, that's where you want to keep your eyes peeled to it. So again, with saying that, you guys have a great day, great weekend, and I'll see you guys next Saturday. I think John Luke is actually going to run it next Saturday because I'm going to be moving. So John Luke's going to be running it, and I'm excited for what's to come. We got some things that we're going to be planning together. So I think the next coming months are going to be very bullish for crypto and assets and for what we have here in Powerhouse. All right. So again, we're saying that you guys have a great day. Again, I'll see you guys soon. Peace.